Hey everyone, I'm Mel from Sewing with Mel, and yesterday I did a video on how you can use one of the built-in fonts to make an applique in Design Center. So I want to point something out. Let's revisit that a little bit, and I want to show you something. So yesterday when I did the video, I chose that, and we talked about that you use a stamp to make your applique, okay? When you use a stamp, it only goes around the outside, okay? It would make an applique of a D without a hole in the middle. So if you choose one of these, okay, let's go ahead and do it. Say set. Let's go up to edit, stamp key. It's made a stamp of the outside, okay? You don't get that inside. Let's do it so you can see what I'm talking about. It's saved. Let's get out of this now. And let's pull it up in Design Center and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Shapes, that's where it's saved. Up here in your flower tab. It's not really a flower, but it is a flower. It's your shapes tab. And there's the D. Okay, so let's choose it and say okay. All right, there it is. And it's kind of hard to see, I think, because it's got the red thing around it. Let's see, there we go. All right, so there is your stamp. It does not have the hole in the middle. So what do? Well, in this case, you can either hit the pencil and draw your own in. Isn't that beautiful? Or you can go to shapes, find a similar shape that you could use. Now the problem is, let's do this. Let's make this smaller first. If you deselect this, these automatically run together and then you can't move them apart. So let's make it smaller so that we can move it. Because if you try to move it off the screen, you can't select the whole thing again. All right, now it's small enough to move it down here. So let's do that. Let's go to select and let's select this so that we can move it up out of the way like that. All right. Oh, I know what else I wanted to tell you. All right. So, all right, let's do this. When you select something, it doesn't automatically snap to the size of your shape. So if you're trying to see what size your box is, I wanted to know what size that was, I need to make that select thing exactly the same size as the box, all right? So this is what I'm going to show you here. Let's look at size. It's telling me that it's 3.23 by 4.66. This is not that size. This is that size, okay? So if you're trying to see what size this is, it's what size this is, okay? All right, I know that was confusing, but all right. Let's get out of that. You would need to make this the shape that goes in that. And I don't remember off the top of my head at this second whether it was just a long rectangle or what. But let's kind of make it that. I don't know if you guys can see, my arm is in the way. That might not be, that is not the right size. Let's make the whole thing, bigger. All right, even bigger. Because my red box is growing, but it's, see what I mean? So now, say this was the inside of my D. You would take this, figure out where it went in there. It went right back. What is going on? Let's try that again. Oh, that's because I touched over there. Then I'm going to say okay. There. Now, you can go like this and move it. So that's how you would put it back in there. So you can either draw it or use a shape. All right. let's go on to the next thing that we're going to do, okay? So let's cancel that. We don't need it anymore and say okay. So say you wanted to make an applique of a number or something that is not in your machine. It's something else and you want to scan it in. Well, let's do this. See that? All right, 6. I got my magnets here. Now I want to tell you about when it scans in, okay? Put your magnets as far away from whatever you're scanning as possible, because then once you scan it in and we put the box around it, we can put the box so that the magnets are on the outside. Otherwise, it's going to scan your magnets too, and you have to erase that. So make less work for yourself. Put the magnets as far to the sides and far away from it as you can, and then scan it. All right, I'm going to put this in my machine. And let's go to my design center. Okay, now we're going to scan. You want to do a line scan. Okay, so let's hit that. You want to hit scan. This is an SD card, your laptop or your PC, and your USB ports, okay? This would be if you already had an image saved in or on one of these. That's where you would pull it up. But we're going to scan. So let's hit scan and scan our number 6. All right, and with the magic of video editing, I did it in like 2 seconds flat. All right, we know that's not true. All right, back to the video. So now what we want to do is see this red line around there? Let's get rid of the magnets. This is what I said about not putting your magnets so close to your to what you're scanning, okay? So let's take this and let's move it up, not too much. I'm doing it from far away, so it's kind of hard. Did I get it? I think so. And this way, get rid of the magnets. I think I got it. Okay, this looks really good. Okay, now remember, when you scan something, it really needs to be a nice black line. It needs to be legible for the machine to find it. If you just traced something and used a pencil, it's not going to scan well. Okay, so has to have nice dark lines. If you print something off and it isn't dark enough, get a marker and trace over it. Okay, all right, this looks good to me. Let's say okay. Yep, looks good. I'm going to go ahead and set it. All right, now it's in Design Center. Now in our other video, I talked about how we have 3 parts to an applique. You have your placement stitch, which tells you where to lay your fabric for your applique. Then you have your tack down stitch, which tacks down the fabric for your applique. And then once you stitch that, you cut around the outside, and your final stitch, your third part of it, is going to be your satin stitch all around the outside, or whatever stitch that you happen to choose. All right, so we would make the first step, which is your placement stitch. So let's do the placement stitch. And you can change this down here so we don't have to see the magnets or see the part that we scanned. Let's make it lighter. Okay, that's all. I don't need the rest of that stuff. I've got my outline, so I'm good. All right, you need to go into properties. Remember the default is the satin stitch or zigzag. It's a tight zigzag, but we're going to call it satin stitch. We're going to choose the running stitch. Okay, now remember I said in the other video, it goes around twice. We don't have the option to just make it go around once. All right. Change your placement stitch to a different color. You want each step to be a different color so that you can tell them apart. Let's change it to red. Say okay. And I always like to make it bigger so I can see the line. Now, there are 2 parts to stitch. It would stitch this and it will stitch the outside of this. You can do it in whatever order you want to, but whichever one you do first is what's going to stitch out first. Okay, so bucket, remember we have to tell it what we want. Right now it's just a line, it's not a stitch. See if I can touch it. Perfect. There's one. Let's touch the second one. There's two. All right, let's make it small again. Okay, it looks good. That is our placement stitch. Go ahead and save it, okay? Recall, save. Hit this. Let's save it in our memory. It is saving it in the memory of Design Center in your machine, okay? So now we need to do the second one. Let's do the tack down stitch, okay? So it's exactly the same. Let's make it a different color. Go over here. Let's change it to purple. Say okay. I like to make it bigger so I can see what I'm doing. The bucket is selected. Touch it. Touch it. All right. And that's all you need for the second one because it's just a running stitch all the way around. Save that. Oop, that's recall. Cancel. Save. Saving. Okay, let's do the third part of the applique. All right. We are going to now change this to satin stitches. So what do? We come back over here again. Satin stitches chosen. And let's make it purple. Actually, I wanted a different color than the blue. Let's make it orange so we can see. Say okay. Do the same thing you did before. And bucket. Change. Change. All right. Let's hit next. All right. Now you may notice that this part is showing, but this part is very faint. Now there's a reason for this. This is one object and this is one object, okay? If you go over here, you can go between those objects. But what you really want to do is link those objects together. This right here is your global key, and if you hit that, you've got it all. You want to do that, okay? Otherwise it won't save right. Let's go into our zigzag width. I want it to be wider than 0.080. And I know that I like, oops, that was small, bigger. I like 0.200, just like that. And then hit set. If you hit global like that and do that, it applies it to all of it. If you just went through select, you'd have to do it to that one and then that one. But guess what? It doesn't save right. So do it globally, okay? Looks good. Let's go ahead and save it before we hit preview. All right, now let's go to preview. Yep, looks good. So if you didn't like it, you could return and make it different, okay? All right, so if I just hit set, it's on there. Now I can add my other two pieces, but they're in the wrong order, okay? It's just much easier to go take that out, say okay, and start over, right? So what I want you to do is go into my Design Center. There's a reason we do it this way. Let's try something. Let me cancel that. If I just went into my machine and they were saved in my machine, which they're not because I saved them in Design Center instead, and I just tried to pull them in from here, from this part of the memory, they do not, they don't go exactly on top of each other. They're off a little bit and then you have to move it. It's so much easier to do it from Design Center because when you bring them in from there, they overlay on each other exactly in the right place. Okay, so recall. See, there's our three. We did this one, then this one, then this one. We want to stitch that first. Set. Now, hit next, then preview. You kind of have to go through the motions, but believe me, it will work. Watch this. Okay, and set. Yes, you have to push all the buttons. Now, we want to add another one. Add, Design Center, recall, machine, get the second one. Set, push all the buttons. It's easier to push buttons than it is to try to line something back up perfectly, okay? All right. Now you got two. See, there's the first one in the right place first. Second, let's go get the third one. Guess I didn't push the right button, did I? Recall. There. There it is. Set. Next. Preview. Okay. Set. All right. They're all three on there. Okay. So to double check that, from this screen, come up here to your hoop. And I believe you have this. I'm not sure. It might have come with one of the upgrades. If you don't have the upgrades, you may not have that. So I honestly do not remember whether this was on an upgrade or not. I kind of think it was. So if you hit that and then do that, there is your placement. There's your tack down. And there is your satin stitch. You may go faster. Whoop. Okay. So that is how you would scan one in and do one with the hole in it. All right. Okay. I hope you learned a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.